We called it hide and kill. It's been years since I thought about the game we used to play. It was called hide and kill. Don't worry, it wasn't anything creepy back then. At least not to us. We were kids, and kids don't really understand fear, not the kind that matters. We were 10, maybe 11. That strange age where you think you're invincible, but deep down you still believe in monsters. We spent every summer day outside, chasing each other through the woods, making up games that sounded dangerous just to feel grown up. Hide and kill was our favorite. It started as a joke. Ryan had seen some horror movie he wasn't supposed to, one where the villain hunted people through the dark. The next day he showed up with a toy knife from the dollar store and said, "Let's make hide and seek more fun." We all laughed. We always laughed. The rules were simple and stupid. 1. One person was the hunter. 2. The rest were hiders. 3. The hunter had to close their eyes, count to 30 and say, "Ready or not, I'm coming to kill." 4. When the hunter found someone, they'd clap twice, like a gunshot. That was the kill. 5. The game wouldn't end until every hider was found by the hunter. We'd take turns, each one trying to sound scarier than the last when saying that line. It was just pretend, nothing more. But somehow, it always felt different. The woods behind my house were big, at least to us. Trees packed so tightly together that they swallowed light, branches like arms reaching out as you ran past. We called it the Wilds. It was maybe an acre of forest between our neighborhood and the old highway. It smelled like wet earth and pine needles and adventure. Our parents didn't really keep track of us. Back then, nobody did. We'd disappear for hours, playing tag or making up stories about ghosts that lived by the creek. There was this one spot at the far end of the wilds that always creeped us out, though the drainage tunnel. It was big enough for a kid to crawl through, a concrete pipe that disappeared into the dark, humming faintly with dripping water. The kind of place where your voice echoed too long. The first time we found it, Alex dared Ryan to go inside. Ryan only made it a few feet before he screamed and ran out, swearing something breathed on him. We laughed until we couldn't breathe. From that day on, it became the ultimate spot. If you hid there, you were brave. If you went in alone, you were a legend. My mom always told me to stay away from that tunnel. "Bad people go there," she said once, half whispering it while washing dishes. I remember asking her what she meant, and she just said, "Just don't." When I pressed, she told me a story about a man who used to live in the woods, someone the police never caught after something bad happened to a girl, years before I was born. But when you're a kid, warnings sound like dares, and hide and kill made every dare feel like destiny. We played that game almost every weekend that summer. Sometimes in daylight, sometimes as the sun went down and the trees turned black silhouettes. We made safe zones, fallen logs, or big rocks where you could stand and be immune for 10 seconds if you got scared. We made rules about whispers and traps and blood points if you scared someone enough to make them run. It sounds ridiculous now, but back then, it felt real. We even made a chant. Before each round, Ryan would grin at us, raise his hand like he was starting a ceremony and say, "Hide and kill, hide and thrill, don't get caught, don't stand still." Then he'd start counting, slow and loud, while the rest of us scattered. We never thought about how strange it was that our innocent laughter echoed through the same woods my mom warned me about, that the shadows around us always seemed to move a little differently when the game began. Not until that day. The day everything changed. The day I became the last one hiding. We met up right after lunch. The sky was heavy and gray, the kind that looks swollen with rain but never follows through. Everything smelled like damp grass and ozone. The four of us met by the fallen oak at the edge of the woods, the one we always used as base. Ryan had the usual grin plastered on his face. He was the kind of kid who always had a smudge of dirt on his cheek and a scratch somewhere on his arms, like the woods were part of him. Sarah had brought a pack of juice boxes. Alex had his flashlight, which barely worked, and I had my lucky blue hoodie that made me feel braver than I really was. We argued for a few minutes about who would be the hunter this time, until Ryan pointed at me. "You've got the best hiding spots, George. Go prove it." Sarah chimed in, smirking. "Bet you won't use the tunnel." That got a laugh out of everyone. Even I laughed, though my stomach twisted at the idea. I could already smell that place in my head, wet stone and rot, the kind of cold that felt alive. But pride's a dangerous thing when you're 10. So I said, fine, I will. Ryan clapped his hands together, excited. All right, boys and ghouls. Hide and kill, round 6. You've got 30 seconds. He turned toward the tree, covered his eyes, and started counting. Slow, loud, drawn out on purpose. 1, 2, 3. The rest of us scattered. I bolted toward the creek, the sound of leaves crunching under my sneakers. Every step made my heart race faster. The woods were darker than usual. The clouds had thickened, turning everything into dull shades of green and gray. By the time Ryan shouted 10, I'd reached the edge of the drainage tunnel. The mouth of it yawned open in front of me, a perfect black circle framed by wet moss and graffiti. Someone had spray-painted a crude red smile near the rim. It was probably just teenagers, but even then it looked wrong, like it was grinning at me. 25, 26. I crouched down and crawled inside. The air changed instantly, cold, damp, stale. My palms sank into mud. The air changed. I crouched down and crawled inside. The air changed instantly, cold, damp, stale. My palms sank into mud as I crawled forward, and every move made a hollow splash that echoed back at me. I could see the faint glow of daylight at the entrance behind me, shrinking with every inch I moved. When I finally stopped, the light had shrunk to the size of a coin. The tunnel stretched ahead into pure darkness. I crouched there, trying to slow my breathing. My hoodie was already soaked through from the walls, and my knees ached from the rough concrete. The smell was thick, earthy, metallic, tinged with something faintly sour, like old water that hadn't moved in years. Outside, the forest came alive with the sounds of the game. Leaves rustled, twigs snapped, laughter drifted faintly through the trees. Somewhere far away, I heard Sarah's muffled giggle cut off by 2 sharp claps. "Got you!" Ryan shouted, his voice echoing faintly. I smiled in the dark. For a second, it was easy to forget the chill. Easy to pretend everything was just as it always had been, kids playing in the woods, harmless fun. Then he called out again. "Ready or not, I'm coming to kill!" His voice carried through the trees, playful and exaggerated, but when it echoed through the tunnel, it sounded different. Longer, distorted, like the concrete stretched the words until they didn't sound like Ryan anymore. I pressed myself against the cold wall and grinned anyway. My heart was pounding with that perfect kind of kid excitement, the kind that feels dangerous but isn't. The kind that makes you hold your breath and count along, even when you're not supposed to. For a while I just listened, his footsteps, the bursts of laughter, the clapping echoing somewhere far off. It all blended together into a rhythm I knew by heart. Then, slowly, the sounds faded. The woods went quiet. I waited, thinking maybe Ryan was sneaking, trying to catch me off guard. I even smiled, ready to jump and scare him back. But the silence dragged on, too long. Minutes passed. My knees were numb from crouching in the shallow water. The tunnel dripped somewhere, behind me, slow, steady, the only sound in a world that felt completely still. I started to wonder if the game was over. Maybe Ryan had gotten bored and gone home. Maybe everyone had. I leaned forward, straining to hear anything beyond my own breathing. The air was thick and cold. It pressed against my ears. Then came a sound, a splash. Very faint, but it wasn't mine. It came from deeper inside, the end of the tunnel that curved away in total dark. I frowned. "Ryan?" I whispered, half smiling. "That you?" Nothing. Another splash, closer, slow, deliberate, like someone stepping heel first into the water and dragging the other foot behind. My heart started to climb into my throat. I pressed my hand against the wall. It felt slick with condensation, and held my breath. That's when I heard the breathing. It wasn't Ryan. It wasn't any kid. It was heavy, wet, strained. Whoever it was sounded like they were dragging air through a throat that had forgotten how. "Ryan?" I tried again, quieter now. Still nothing. The splashes grew louder, closer. Whoever was down there wasn't running. They were walking slow, methodical steps that echoed off the curved concrete. Water sloshed, dripped, then silence, Then another step. I should have bolted right then, but I couldn't. Every part of me locked up. My body knew before my brain did that something was wrong. Then a voice floated out of the darkness. Ria die. It wasn't playful. It wasn't Ryan. It was deep, rasping, older, or not. The words scraped along the tunnel walls like metal dragging on stone. I'm coming to kill. My blood went cold. I flattened myself against the wall, eyes wide, mouth open but silent. I could hear the man's boots pushing through the shallow water now. Closer. Steady. Each step ending with a faint suck of mud letting go. The beam of Ryan's old flashlight had died long ago, but the tiniest glow still leaked from the mouth of the tunnel behind me, enough to catch movement. I saw it then, a vague silhouette, broad shoulders, long arms. Something glinted in his hand, a thin streak of silver catching the faint light. He spoke again, his tone almost conversational. You kids picked a bad place to play. My pulse hammered in my ears. Been waiting these woods a long time, he said. Figured you'd come back eventually. Little voices carry, you know? The sound of dragging followed, not metal this time, but something softer. Maybe a coat, maybe a bag, I couldn't tell. Come on out now, he crooned. Don't make me count. He started counting, slowly, each number drawn out like a threat. 1, 2, I crawled backward, my hands trembling in the freezing water. Each movement sent tiny ripples that sounded deafening to me. 3, he paused. You still breathing, little mouse? The voice was closer now, maybe 20 feet away. I could smell him, a damp, sour stench of old sweat and pond water. Then he chuckled, a broken, choking sound that dissolved into coughing. Used to play this game too once, with my brother. He cheated. A splash, louder this time. He'd started moving again. I don't like cheaters. My hand slid over the curve of the tunnel until my fingers brushed a narrow ledge where the pipe met the wall. I pressed myself into it, holding still. The man's footsteps slowed, then stopped completely. The silence pressed in again. I couldn't see him anymore, but I knew he was there just beyond the curve, listening. The sound of dripping water filled the space between us. Then softly he spoke. You hid good. Better than most. Something metal tapped against the wall once. Twice. Like a nervous tick. Maybe I'll keep you for later. He laughed again, low and wheezy. Hide and kill, huh? Guess I'm it. I bit down hard on my sleeve to stop from gasping. Then suddenly, his voice shifted quieter, closer to a whisper. There you are. I didn't think. I crawled fast, blind, splashing backward toward the faint ring of light at the tunnel's end. His footsteps exploded behind me, fast now, the water thrashing as he moved. I could hear his breath right at my back, ragged and wet. Stop! He roared, the sound echoing so violently it hurt my ears. I didn't. I kept crawling until the light grew larger, brighter. Then, just as I reached the mouth, the footsteps stopped. The tunnel went silent. I turned, shaking, expecting him to lunge from the dark. But all I saw was blackness and the faint outline of him standing perfectly still, half hidden by shadow. He sighed, long, weary, almost gentle. I guess you win this round, he said. The echo stretched the words until they felt huge. But the game isn't over, not till I find you. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he turned, water splashing softly as he walked back into the dark. His humming followed him, a tuneless, broken melody that grew fainter with every step, until the only thing left was the dripping. I stayed there for what felt like hours before crawling out into the pale afternoon light. I ran. I didn't even look back. I tore through the trees so fast the branches clawed at my arms, ripping my sleeves and skin. My lungs burned, my chest felt like it would split open, but I didn't stop. I just needed to get home. To my mom. To light. When I burst through the tree line and stumbled into my backyard, I hit the ground hard. My knees scraped open, gravel embedding in my palms. I could taste dirt and blood. For a second, I just lay there gasping, trying to believe I'd made it out. Then I heard sirens. 2 police cars sat parked out front, their lights flashing red and blue through the trees. My mom was in the driveway, crying into an officer's chest. She saw me and screamed my name, half sob, half disbelief. She ran to me, pulled me into her arms so hard it hurt. Behind her, I saw Sarah's mom sitting on the curb, clutching one of Sarah's pink sneakers. Alex's dad was pacing in circles. Ryan's parents were holding each other, shaking. They all looked at me the same way, relief tangled with something else. Something like pity. I kept asking what happened, but no one answered. The officers just whispered to each other, their faces tight, pale. Someone draped a blanket over me. My mom kept saying, "You're safe now, baby, you're safe." But the thing is, I didn't feel safe. I felt like I'd done something wrong, like I'd left something unfinished. That night, I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling while my mom sat in the chair across the room, afraid to turn the lights off. Every creak, every sound outside made my heart seize. I thought I could still hear the water dripping, the echo of that sigh. I told myself it was just my imagination. I told myself there hadn't been anyone in the tunnel, but deep down, I knew better. For years, I tried not to think about it. I never asked about that day again. When people at school mentioned the woods or the police tape, I'd change the subject. It worked for a while. I convinced myself it was some freak accident. Maybe they'd wandered too far, maybe the creek had flooded. The memories got quieter, dusty, until I turned 18. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe curiosity, maybe guilt. But one night, I opened my laptop and searched the town's old archives. The headline hit me like a punch to the chest. 3 children found dead in local woods, bodies discovered near drainage tunnel. The article said the police believed it was a targeted attack, that the killer had used a sharp object, that the bodies showed signs of mutilation. They never caught him, never even had a suspect. But one detail stood out. Something small, buried halfway down the column. A witness, walking his dog near the woods, reported hearing a man's voice shouting, followed by the sound of clapping twice. That word made my stomach twist. Clapping, not gunshots, not screams, claps. Like our game, like our joke. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there, staring at the wall, feeling that cold tunnel air again, wet against my skin, heavy with the smell of rust and rot. He'd found them, all of them, except me, and I couldn't stop thinking about his voice, that sigh, the quiet disappointment in it. Sometimes late at night, when the house settles and the pipes groan, I hear something else underneath it. A faint, steady drip, the squeak of wet shoes on concrete, and a breath, long, slow, patient. Ready or not, I won hide and kill that day. But because he never found me, it means we're still playing.